Good morning, YouTube people. I am I'm lying here in a hot bath, trying to soak away some of the body pain so that I can get up and continue working on my kitchen. I've been vlogging my house cleanup, and boy, is it's a big task. And I started on the kitchen yesterday, so anyway. I'm going to go work on that for a while, then I've got to go into town and hang out with my mom for a while, which will be nice. But in the meantime, I wanted to talk about rainwater collection in California. And the reason is because my friend Texan in the UK, check out her channel. It's a great channel. She and her husband live in this just picturesque area in Great Britain, and she's from Texas, obviously, and so it's really been neat to get to know her. She does a great job with, she'll like take you on walks and take you to go look at their vegetables and stuff. They have one of those shared garden things like they do in Great Britain. It's really neat. So Texan in the UK, check her out. Anyway, she asked the question if my husband and I had rainwater storage set up because we're getting all this weird rain in the summertime. Well, let me tell you about that. About 5 years ago, my husband and I were reading a Sunset magazine, I think it was, and they had this interesting article on a couple who had they built a straw bale house somewhere in Texas, probably close to Houston, but it was out in the boonies somewhere, and they were completely off grid, no electricity, no septic per se, I mean nothing. They just had the house. It was a beautiful house, and then their sort of workarounds for all that stuff. Well, I guess a rooftop water collection is a big deal in other states, southern states particularly, and so of course they had that set up. Well, what they had done is they built this series of water storage tanks, but they weren't like your plastic tank like you buy, you know, and set up here. They were made of ferro cement. They were hand built, and so they built these. I don't know how many, maybe 2,000 gallon cement or no, you know what? I think they were 6,000 gallon now that I'm thinking about it. So they were huge water storage tanks, and they built them to look like they had these really beautiful shapes like urns, and they look like pots. I mean, they didn't just have straight sides. They were beautiful curvilinear sort of vessels for rainwater, and it was just beautiful. And the article went into a lot of detail about how they set up their roof system, because you know you have to when you're doing water storage, you know, rooftop water storage. First, you have to let the rain clean off your roof, and then I guess there are these little gates that will close, and then it will divert water. That was my cat jumping off the windowsill. Anyway, and then it'll start diverting the water into your storage tanks. And these people lived year-round on nothing but these. I think it was a series of 6 tanks, and they would. Part of how they did that is that they would do their laundry in town. You know. When whoever it was that worked in town, they would take the laundry in once a week or whatever, and they, of course, were extremely careful about like reusing their gray water and all of that. But it was a fascinating article, and it got my husband's engineering. It goosed him in his engineering place, and so we started to investigate and discovered that back then you couldn't store rainwater. In California, it was illegal to reclaim rainwater in California, which was a huge surprise. Well, that changed in 2013. The law changed so that, well, the law didn't change, but well, yeah, I guess it did change. They determined that rainwater somehow didn't fall into the guidelines of of what you were not allowed to divert. So they tacked on this thing saying, yeah, you are allowed to divert rainwater into storage. So that's wonderful, except for that it doesn't really work here that well. And this is the reason. It's at least in the Central Valley where we live, the water is either coming down or it's not. And it's like that cycles every 6 months. So for, I don't know, anywhere between 2 and 6 months out of the year, but usually around 4 months out of the year, 4 or 5 months, that was our rainy season. It was in the winter. And I say was because it's been so many years since things have been normal. I'm speaking in the past tense. Anyway, so we'd get a lot of rain and a lot of snow. And we live right next to right over there are the High Sierras. So huge amount of snowpack exists up there, or didn't this year. And what would happen is, in the non-rainy season, that snowpack would melt. Snowpack from further on up the line would melt, and you'd get water coming down through the underground aquifers that would get pumped up, as well as surface water that would be diverted into canals and different things, and used primarily for either selling to the Los Angeles area or agriculture, because has been a ton of agriculture in this area for, years and decades and decades and decades. Anyway, so there was no real need to collect water during our rainy season because there was so much of it. And then during our dry season, well, there wasn't any water to collect. So, that never sort of took off here. Even after they changed the laws, I haven't seen anybody doing rooftop rainwater collecting. I mean, on any big scale, there's probably people doing it, but it's not a thing, if you know what I mean. So anyway, that's sort of the answer to that. Now, I think it may be interesting as time goes on that that may change. I mean, this rain, they're saying they seem to know everything. I don't trust they. Anyway, they are telling us that all of this rain is El Nino related, because El Nino got here and has stayed, and apparently that's part of what's bringing it. I don't know what's true in terms of anything that they happen to say. But so this is probably an anomaly, and it will probably not be like this next year unless we have another set of conditions that has caused this. So anyway, point is that no, we don't do rooftop reclamation. Although this year it sure would have been nice to have had a system in place where we could do that, because the way these rains come down, they can be torrential and short, and then they're gone. So it's not a nice steady rain that soaks into the ground. It's a rain that washes away your topsoil and then leaves, and doesn't do a whole lot of good for, for your plants, really, to be honest with you. So, anyway, that's the story about rainwater reclamation, and I have a million things I want to talk to you guys about, but I need to finish up this bath and go see what else I can do in my kitchen. So, on that note, I will say goodbye. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon.